What's
All right, three-way swapcast going down. Rack'em Football Podcast. Sit down, Zumock, inappropriate Earl. What you want, what you get. Here it is, live and direct, straight out of West Hollywood, straight out of Tampa. I have the one, the only, Mr. Earl motherfucking Skakel in the house. Earl,
what's up, man?
how are you?
Just waking up. Gotta take the dog for a walk after this and do hot yoga as it cleanses my mind and gives me my amazing body.
Look at that. Look at that.
Look at that horseshoe tricep.
You know what I just got done watching?
What?
I just watched Stallone, Frank that is, on Amazon Prime.
I wanted to watch it. He's not interesting enough for me to waste an hour of my life. How is it?
It was interesting.
I mean, it is crazy that guy, his brother, is probably the most famous actor of our time. I mean, with Tom Hanks, maybe a few others, but he's top 5. And this guy can't get work. Like, that's crazy to me.
Well, he's done well, man. He's actually piggybacked off Sly very well. Like, he did the he got his first claim to fame, the first Rocky. He was sitting around the trash can with his band called the Valentines, going, "Take me back, do 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 do." That was his like #1 hit. They got signed to RCA after that.
But you'd think he could have gotten some bigger gigs than like basically an extra in Rocky when your brother is Rocky.
Well, he came back in Rocky 2 and he did the soundtrack to Staying Alive, the sequel to Saturday Night Fever. He had the hit song,
which is a great undervalued Travolta movie. Stallone directed.
Yeah.
Which I don't think a lot of people know, that Sylvester Stallone had his hands on Staying Alive. There was a lot of pressure on him for that movie because Nighthawks, which was I think the year before, it kind of bombed.
1981.
So now, well, I guess 2 years before. So there's a lot of pressure on Stallone to make that movie work because people were like, well, you had a chance with Nighthawks and it didn't do very well. So you better either have this movie be a hit or pump out another Rocky movie.
And the Bee Gees were signed to do the soundtrack to Staying Alive, and they backed out. They just left a couple of songs. They're like, "Hey, listen, we're not feeling it." The songs they were doing was acoustic. It wasn't disco. And then Frank was writing all these songs, and then they didn't want any of them. Then all of a sudden, from out of nowhere, Frank wrote this fucking gem. Remember this?
Oh, yeah, dude. That was a big hit.
Next thing you know, Frank was on top of the fucking world.
Yeah, and, you know, if you're a fan of the 80s, you know, some great appearances. You know, Kurtwood Smith was like the gay choreographer. Of course, he was Clarence Boddicker in RoboCop. He's probably not too eager to talk about Staying Alive, but, you know, he was funny in it. And Cynthia Rhodes, who was like the queen of the 80s films. You know, she was, I mean, it was it was the typical 80s. It doesn't hold up, but it's a good mid 80s film.
Now, why did they bring on Stallone to direct it? Like, that's just kind of a weird, because that was the same year he came out in Rambo and he just did Nighthawks.
I mean, I'll assume, I mean, I don't want to cheat and go on the Wikipedia page, but I'll assume they wanted Travolta back and he probably said no, or he wanted too much money. You know, that was a dark time for Travolta. That's when his career started. I think that's right around the time he did that movie with Lily Tomlin.
By the way, Rotten Tomatoes gave it 0% on the tomato meter, Staying Alive.
I mean, it's a guilty pleasure movie for sure. I could see critics not liking it. I could also see people going, is there really a sequel needed for Saturday Night Fever? Like, there was really no loose ends that needed to be tied up. But
I want to know what happened to the girl they blatantly raped in Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, there's some wackiness going on in the 70s films, and that time period from like 77 to 83, there were some whack movies that were pretty graphic. Cruising with Al Pacino, and the scary thing is that with Cruising, there was 40 minutes that were left out of the theater cut because it would have been a double X rating. So, and Al Pacino was in that movie. Like, those were the kind of movies that were being made. Whereas now Al Pacino's and the Meet the Fockers or something.
That's Robert De Niro. Guy will do anything for a paycheck at this point.
Yeah, it's kind of sad. I mean, this generation is growing up with De Niro and like buddy cop movies. And
he's playing Sebastian's father in his life story movie. Did you hear that?
Oh, Sebastian has a life story?
Yeah, they're filming it, and he's playing Sebastian's father in the movie.
Oh,
Robert
okay.
De Niro.
I mean, I don't know if that. I mean, I know Sebastian's a big comic, but I didn't know he's that big where they do a story about his life.
Well, content's king. They're trying to do whatever they can right now. They're trying to break whoever. We'll get to the football scores soon, but I want to talk this stuff. This is important to me.
Well, that's why I tell people, like, no idea is too bad, because with all the streaming services out there, they need content. Like, there's Amazon, there's Hulu, there's Netflix, there's HBO Max, there's, and they need 24/7 programming. Comedy Central, I'm sure, has, they have their digital streaming service, I think, and I'm sure, like Logo. I mean, there's like probably 10 networks that need 24/7 programming. So,
Earl, why don't you shop your life at Roast Battle about how you were disrespected by Jeff Ross? You went against the odds. You advanced without them wanting you to advance, and then this grudge that you have. How about we turn that into a film score? Or
well,
not score, screenplay.
I don't think you could find anyone that looks like Jeff. Like, you'd have to, like, I don't know, either have the Michelin tire guy. We'd have to buy his rights, but he's too in shape to look like Jeff.
What about the guy who played Corky Thatcher?
Get a pro wrestler, probably. Maybe I'm trying to think of any wrestlers that look like Jeff. Maybe one of the Dudley brothers. Maybe Mass Transit, the ECW. Oh, he died.
Maybe one of the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, well, yeah, Jeff's about that size now. Anything, but as silly as you are with that idea, like, I'm sure they are thinking, hey, Roast Battle season 4, someone would put that on. I mean, yeah, I don't know who.
Who knows? Produced by Jeremy Piven.
They had Roast Battle last night. Like, who the hell is still Roast Battling? Like, what?
I know who wasn't judging. Bob Saget.
Yeah, that's too bad. I only met him once at the store, but it was very memorable. There was, I'm sure you saw the post, but I think I had just gotten past, maybe it'd been a couple years, and the girl says, hey, you're next, the cover booth girl. Do you want to go on? But there's no one in the room. Like, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, 1 or 2 people? She's like, no, there's no one in the room. And she was basically saying, hey, if you don't go on, I get to go home. I'm like, listen, I got to practice being on that stage because I'm still nervous or whatever.
And you still get paid, right?
Oh, yeah. So I think it was $15 at that time. So I went on stage, and a few comics came in the room, and they were kind of roasting each other. And then I see Bob Saget walk in with his lady friend. I don't know if it was his wife. I want to say she was black, from my memory. And then he was kind of cool about it. He sat in the furthest point of the room where he wouldn't like be a distraction. And I think, well, he likes it dirty, so I'm going to go with the dirtiest jokes I have. And I did about 10 minutes of just really raunchy jokes. And he just afterwards walked by me in the hallway and whispered in out of the corner of his mouth, "Love the dark stuff," and then just walked off.
That's cool.
Yeah, he was nice. I mean, oddly, there was like 20 people in the hallway. I'm like, why didn't you guys just go in? Uh, so that's my only memory of him. Well, there was one other time at the Comedy Store where he was holding court in the main room, telling old Mitzi stories, and it was like we were all like kids in a classroom because he was there. So, he's an OG store guy. So it was just kind of neat and you could tell he was still affected by Mitzi and how nice she was to him. So it was kind of neat to sit there in an empty main room and hear him tell stories.
No, I met him a handful of times. I already told the one on my podcast, but I actually, when I first moved to Los Angeles, I was working. You remember Q's? It was in Brentwood, right off of Wilshire.
Yeah, it was a pool hall.
Yeah, I used to work there for like a year.
Okay.
I was like still young and an open micer, so I was like a door guy / Monday, Tuesday bartender, and he would come in all the time and hang out. And I remember talking to him about Dane Cook. It was right when Dane was like MySpace Dane.
Right. Yeah.
He was very engaged in the conversation. He was very into it. He was very defensive of Dane too. He was like on his side.
Well, I mean, Bob would strike me as the type of guy who wouldn't like Dane Cook because he's a comic. Like he writes the jokes. He doesn't stick his ass in the air and do the act outs. But he probably also respected how big he got, and admired him for that.
Yeah.
Although I do admire Dice Clay more than Dane from the standpoint of how big they both got. Dice did it with no social media.
True.
Which is pretty impressive. There's no MySpace at the time. There's no Napster or anything where he could reach out to the masses. He did it in a much harder era right before Dane.
And Dane and Drew, or I'm sorry, Dice managed to somewhat stay relevant through every decade, somehow reinvent himself to always kind of be around. So I always respected that too.
Well, he's also a really funny comic. Like he doesn't get the credit for it. He's kind of like the Kiss of comics, where like Kiss writes some good songs. Like they're not bad, some of their songs. And Dice is the same way. Like, he has a lot of well-structured jokes, but he doesn't get the credit because he's more famous for the nursery rhyme bits and, his language and whatnot. But if you strip that away, he still would have been a great comic.
100%. 100%. Well, since this is the football podcast too, Ken is in Universal Studios with his family. Tony's in a very important meeting right now, and I had no idea that this was all happening. I thought we always do it around this time. We were in the clear. So my apologies to everyone that watches the football podcast. I had no idea. So we're going to go through. I got Tony's picks here. There's only a couple of games, so we'll fly through them real quick. Now, Earl, you're a big Steelers guy. Hardcore. So what do you think about Big Ben going down in a blaze of glory, still fighting his way, and they're going up against Kansas City. Pittsburgh's getting plus 12.5 in Kansas City. What do you think? What's going on? What's your feedback? Tell me.
I mean, I don't think the Steelers are going to win the game. I would take them with the 12 points. I would bet the Steelers with 12 points, but I also think that they do have an avenue to win the game outright. It's not likely. They have to play a perfect game. And that's probably not going to happen in Kansas City on the road. It's probably the toughest place to play in the NFL. Once that crowd gets going and once the Chiefs get a roll, it's pretty hard to stop. But their only weakness is the offensive line. It's a little dodgy at times. And that's the Steelers' strength, is the pass rush. So it's not conceivable, but it's possible that if TJ Watt's healthy, which that last play where he deflected the ball against Baltimore, it looked like he grabbed his crotch area immediately, which probably would indicate that the groin injury is resurfaced, or it never left and he was just hiding it. That's big. If he's close to healthy, they have a shot at getting to Mahomes. And if Fitzpatrick, he's great no one's really talking about the play where he knocked the ball out of the receiver's hand. That was a huge play. So the path gets a little murky because now you're one-on-one coverage, and Hill, if he gets by you, you're not going to catch him. So maybe COVID takes out a few players for the Chiefs. I mean, it's possible the Steelers could win, but it's not likely. So I will pick Kansas City for the win outright. I would bet the Steelers with the 12 points because I don't think it's going to be like that first game. But the Steelers locker room was a mess. There's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't think that's there this time around. But Mahomes is he's in Kansas City. Kelsey, I mean, the Steelers had trouble with the Ravens tight end. Kelsey's another level. He's a new Gronk. So it's obviously I want Pittsburgh to win because this is most likely Roethlisberger's last game. But in the playoffs, and this is a very long-winded answer, so sorry.
No, that's fine.
In hockey, but in hockey, usually the best team wins because you got to win four out of 7. You're not going to get lucky 4 games against Tampa Bay or Florida. But in football, Mahomes is a bad game, which isn't likely, but for whatever reason, it's possible. Upsets are possible in football. So this is tailor-made for an upset game. Because you look at the first game, they don't have a chance. KC comes in all cocky, which they should be against Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger plays a great game. Harris, if he's not, that arm injury will prevent him from stiff arming, which is his big thing. But if he's healthy, that's a great game. Anything's possible, but I'll go with Kansas City here.
I know I agree with everything you say. I think I'm going with Kansas City too with the points, but also listen, Big Ben is playing this underdog thing big time right now. And the reason why he's doing it, because let's just say Big Ben pulls something out of his ass. It's going to add to the resume. It's going to add to the legacy. So he's really playing up the whole, we snuck into the playoffs. We probably shouldn't be here. Out of 14 games, we're probably the worst. Out of 14 teams, we're probably the worst. They were 9-7-1 into the postseason. They had back-to-back victories. They closed out the season strong. But the last time they played the Chiefs was pretty humiliating in Arrowhead Stadium. I think it was 36-10, the beatdown was, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why I love playoff football. But Big Ben is setting the table for that great underdog story, to the legacy of Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not a fan, but I do respect his body of work. Anything can happen. I think personally, I would take, if I was a betting man, I would go ahead and take those points, and the Chiefs are going to win. That's just me.
Well, I think the Steelers aren't as bad as their record. I mean, if you look at some of their losses, I was at the Charger game in SoFi.
Were you?
Yeah, no, that's another podcast. That stadium is amazing.
Did you see Gino Bisconte there?
No, I was in the non-COVID suite, and but for a lot of their losses toward the end of the season, they had Watt was hurt. That's my dog barks. He's got something in his throat. Hayden was hurt. Fitzpatrick, I think, was missed a few games. So, if all those guys are healthy, the Steelers win at least 2 more games. So I don't think they're as bad as what their record indicates, and so I think this will be the best game of the weekend because it's just the Steelers defense is good when healthy, and if Roethlisberger, he doesn't have to play great anymore. He just has to play good and make no mistakes. But on the road, and I think a factor that is beneficial for the Chiefs is Melvin Ingram playing. He was with the Steelers for most of the season, so he knows all the tricks. And I'm sure the Steelers have switched up their terminology But some things, you can't change this far into the season. So like he knows Roethlisberger's audible system, and I noticed when Roethlisberger goes alert, alert, alert. That's an audible. Like even I know that. So if I know that, Melvin Ingram knows it. So, I think it'll be a great game. I mean, I think Ben wants to go out in style. I think the Steelers as a whole are, like you said, very embarrassed at their performance or a couple weeks ago in KC. But I think Tomlin is tailor-made to coach a game like this. So, and that their receiving core is it's not like the Pittsburgh Steelers have no offensive weapons, but once again, it really depends if they're healthy. If Harris is healthy, and Washington, he's had some issues where they haven't used him a lot lately, which I find weird. They've gone more to number 14. I want to say, what's that guy's name? Samuel, I think. The guy who returns kicks. And Claypool seems motivated. If Claypool's motivated, he's tough to stop. So, I mean, there is an avenue for a win for Pittsburgh, but it's just, on the road in KC, it's probably not going to happen.
These playoffs are going to be good. By the way, Tony texted me his pick. He's in a meeting, but he's going to go with the Chiefs on that game, just for people keeping track at home. A lot of these games are going to be phenomenal, and that leads us to another matchup: 10-7 Vegas Raiders versus the Bengals at 10-7 in Cincinnati. Cincinnati -5.5. Where do you stand on that one, Earl?
I mean, I go with the Bengals. Now, if this game was in Las Vegas, I'd go with the Raiders. But Burrow,
you think home team means that much
in this game? Because the Raider fans, they'll be in. I mean, they would have been into this game. It would have been a tough road game in Vegas for the Bengals, but not that the Bengal fan base is known to be like the Steelers, traveling and everywhere, and they're not really known as a wild crowd. I just think they're the better team. I think Burrows is playing a little better than Carr. And I think the tight end for the Raiders, he's injured, and he's Waller. I think he's a huge part of the Raiders' offense. But this is if it was played on a neutral site, and I know that's not a thing. It's a 50-50 game, so I think the Bengals will eke out a win. In terms of the gambling aspects of it, I think this, very smart by the bookmakers to make it 5.5 points, because I think this game will be decided by under 5 points. This will be a 24-21, 27-21.
It's gonna be a close game.
So that's, whoever the odds makers are, brilliant job of setting that line, because they're going to get. All the gamblers are going to pick a side on this game, versus if it was like a 10-point spread or whatnot. It's really, this is a gambler's game. And I'm sure the line will move between now and Saturday.
Saturday, yeah. No, this
but
is
long story short, I apologize for the long-winded answers. I'm going to go with the Bengals minus the points.
Yeah, the Raiders, they're traveling Cincinnati, who beat them during the regular season. Bengals are 10-7. They captured the AFC North title the first time since 2015, if I'm not mistaken. They defeated the Raiders 32-13 on November 21st in Las Vegas. But as you know, Las Vegas has been a TMZ fucking Hard Knocks HBO storied season of craziness and insanity. Browns beat the Bengals on the last game. Like you said, it's going to be a betting dream, but I'm also going to go with Cincinnati on this one. I think Vegas, I think shelve them until next year. They're going to get a new coach and hopefully turn it around, but I'm going to go with Cincinnati on that one. That's just my pick.
By the way, I'd like to shout out to the Chargers coach for calling that last timeout to give the Raiders the ability to kick the field goal, which is why the Steelers got into the playoffs. So that might be the most boneheaded. Like if they just would have ran the clock out, both teams make the playoffs. Like
We were all rooting for a tie for that game. We wanted a tie so bad.
well, I was working out on the elliptical to the basically the second half of that game, and I was like, okay, it's a perfect score because I think at one point it was a 9-point lead. I'm like, okay, that's almost impossible to tie because you have to get 3 field goals or you have to get a safety and a touchdown. Like it's looking good for Pittsburgh, and then like, oh my God, I forget one play that happened where they scored. Like, oh, now it's back to a 1-score game, and oh yeah, this could be a tie. I mean, that was the odds of a tie were so low, and then thank God for a Chris Webber like timeout call. I mean, if I'm the Chargers owner, I fire that coach just for that. I don't care how good a season they had. I mean that all they had to do was let the clock. I don't think the Raiders were going to kick a field goal. They were happy, like, hey, we're in. Like, I mean, I know they're saying the right thing. Oh, we were going to go for a field goal. They weren't. You could tell by the body language they were in no rush to get a final playoff. So, thank you to the Chargers coach. You got the Steelers in.
Also, Tony Mazer picked the Bengals on that one for those of you playing at home. That leads us, and these playoff games are going to be phenomenal. That leads us to another game. We got Bill Burr's Patriots 10-7 going up against Josh Potter's 11-6 Bills in Buffalo. I actually had at the beginning of the season Buffalo going to the Super Bowl, but they were so inconsistent and weird this season. I don't know what the hell to think, but they're getting -4 in Buffalo. Earl, where do you stand on this game?
Well, the Patriots are getting 4 points.
Patriots are getting +4.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to go with the Bills, although they are very schizophrenic team this year.
Schizophrenic's the best word.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you just like they lost to the Steelers at home. Like that was like that's what I thought. Oh man, the Steelers are going to be good this year if they can beat Buffalo. And then so I just think their quarterbacks just. I mean, Jones is good and he's going to be good, but I don't think that you can compare the two quarterbacks right now. And I think Buffalo at home is. I mean, I know it's tough to pick against Belichick, but when Belichick doesn't have Brady, it's a little easier to pick against them. I'm going with Buffalo.
Their talk is Josh Allen, their quarterback, is a fucking gunner, and he throws hard, like a Dan Marino type of hard. And I guess from what I understand, the receivers are kind of complaining. They're telling him to dial it back a little bit, like that Stephon Diggs, because it's cold. It's fucking cold. And these receivers are dropping balls because he just jams them down right down the route. So I thought that was kind of odd. That was very odd that the receivers are telling him to dial it back on the throws.
Well, I mean, and I've played hockey in that kind of weather, and although you're not catching things with your hands in hockey, unless you're the goalie, your hands are numb, man. When it's that kind of cold, like even with gloves on, like there's nothing you can do to prepare for that kind of cold. And it's the wind chills. It's cold with no wind, but I'll assume there'll be some wind chill there. Yeah, I mean, you definitely have to neuter your throws a little bit if you're a gunslinger. But I think what's going to help, I almost said the Sabres, Bills, is his Allen's running ability. It's just, you don't see too many quarterbacks outside of Jackson in Baltimore who can move like he can. So that's going to prevent a problem because even if the receivers and tight end are covered, that gives. It's almost like Allen wants that so he can take off, and he's hard to bring down. He's like Roethlisberger size, but like fast. So I just think if it's in New England, maybe Belichick and I don't know, do some things, but I mean, it's a 50-50 game, and it's really I'm going with the home team because I just think a little more comfortable in their own surroundings. that's what makes these playoffs great this year. Like every game I see is a 50-50 game, with the exception of the Steeler game, which obviously the Chiefs are the clear-cut favorite there. But all the other games, I could see either team winning. So I'm erring on the side of caution and going with the home team in all my picks.
Well, I'm going to go the opposite on that because New England won earlier this season just throwing 3 passes in the cold. So I think the Patriots got some momentum. I think this Mac Jones is Belichick's new guy, and I think he's in love with this dude. And I think it's time for Mac Jones to become a name to beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo against Josh Allen. This puts him ahead. I think the Bills pull this one out. That's my prediction with the points. And Tony's going with that pick too, Patriots, according to Tony Mazer. So that's where we stand with that.
But I will say this, I think what the Bills' defensive strategy will be to stop the running game early and make Jones, all right, you're going to beat us. You're going to beat us with passing. And, so I think the Patriots, obviously they can win for sure. But if the Bills stunt the running game, a lot of pressure on Jones on the road. So I would guess they would put an 8-man box in the defensive system. So Jones is going to have a great game. But it's possible. It's one game. I just think the Bills, there's too many odds stacked in their favor. But this is a 50-50 game.
50-50 game. That leads us to another game right down the street, 3 miles down the road from Chad Zumock, the Z-Man, and Raymond James Stadium. We got the 9-8 Philadelphia Eagles coming to Tampa Bay, 13-4. Tampa Bay's given up 8.5 points in Raymond James. They're on a mission. Antonio Brown is probably still walking around without a shirt on. 2 Buccaneers offensive players are doubtful for Tampa Bay's game against the Eagles. Will that make a difference for Tom Brady? Who knows? What does Bruce Arians have up his sleeve? What do you got, Earl, on this game? What's your 4-1-1? What's your take? Rack you.
I mean, I'll obviously go with Brady. The Eagles, it's a nice story, but I don't see many paths for victory. Then you got to stop Brady. You got to stop Gronkowski. You got to stop Leonard Fournette. Or is he hurt? Is he out? Is Fournette out? The running back?
Let me check out Leonard. Yeah, he's doubtful with Jones doubtful running backs. Yeah, he's doubtful. Has been dealing with a hamstring injury.
Yeah, I remember that a couple games ago. It was pretty severe injury. It goes back to the one game, anything can happen. The Eagles are in like that Steelers position of they have to play a perfect game. And you have to hope Brady doesn't have a perfect game, or even in Brady at 70% is better than most quarterbacks. I don't see it when it comes to a one-on-one quarterback versus quarterback. I don't see Brady losing that.
Brady's like he doesn't age.
He looks amazing for that's what bums me out about Roethlisberger. It's like you could still play for a couple more years if you had his fitness regimen. But I don't see many pathways for the Eagles to win unless, Brady just completely falls apart, and that rarely happens. And unless between now and Sunday, that's the morning game, COVID, you do have to kind of factor in COVID issues. It is Florida, which, as you know, is the Wild West for COVID. And so you got to figure all the Buccaneers aren't staying at home at night. So the Eagles have to hope for some wild childs on Tampa to, sink the ship. But I would take Tampa minus the points in this one.
I'll be driving back from Miami on the 15th. I'm doing a show at the Umbrella, headlining Great independent venue. Been going on 13 years strong. They get great independent comics, just big names, big names. So come check me out if you live in the Miami area. So I probably will miss this game driving back. I'm going Patriots. I'm a believer. I think Tom Brady is on another mission, even if they have people
With
going
the
down.
Patriots.
Or I'm sorry, I'm thinking Bucks.
Oh,
I'm still thinking.
let it go, dude. He ain't coming back.
I'm a guy from New England. I just can't let go. I just watched The Town on Netflix with Ben Affleck.
So I'm a fan of him.
I got those Boston chowders in my head, just yapping away with their little accents. But yeah, I'm going to go with the Patriots in this one. What do you think of Antonio Brown and him doing that craziness?
I mean, someone made a great point. So it's not my point, but he really has never been the same since the perfect hit. He was relatively normal before that. I mean, he was wild, but like he wasn't like. I mean, he's clearly got some mental issues. Because I take cryotherapy a lot, taking it today after hot yoga. The fact that he went into a cryogenic chamber with no shoes on, no socks, no foot, that's insane. Like, I mean, you'd have to. And that he stayed in there for 3 minutes. Like, I'm telling you, like a cryotherapy booth, or I don't know what they're called, the chamber. It's, I think, a minus 150 to 200 degrees, depending where you go. It's beyond bone-chillingly cold in there. So the fact that in his brain he was that I'm going to go in there with no covering on. That shows the level of his mental insanity. So, I mean, it's sad. I mean, it's, the human side of what these guys go through. And someone else said this, once again, I'm taking from someone else's knowledge. Every play in football is a car crash for these guys. They're all gigantic fucking dudes. Even Antonio Brown is like my size. And like, in the comedy world, I'm a big dude, but in the football world, I'd be a small man. So the fact that, you think of the injuries these guys, like look at Roethlisberger. Dude's been playing for 18 years. His body, I can't imagine what his body feels like right now. So, I mean, I hope he gets help before he does something stupid, kills himself or and that's not even trying to be funny. And I mean, these guys.
At least put it on TikTok.
There was I don't know if you guys can see this. It's funny. I actually have the book. I'll try and put this. It's the Derek Boogaard, Boy on Ice, and Derek Boogaard was if you're a hockey guy, he was 6'8", 270 pounds. Naked. So like on ice, he was literally probably close to 7 feet. He was a fighter. He was a tough guy. Ironically, he didn't like fighting, but when you're that big and you're not Wayne Gretzky, you're going to fight. And they did a brain scan of him after he committed suicide. And like you and I probably right now have like, I don't know, 2 or 3 dark spots on our head, on our brain. He had like 23. Like it was like some.
I'd like to split the difference on mine. I probably have like 15.
Well, that's the post and pre Kevin Brennan. So
I didn't know what abusive stepfather you were talking about. My real abusive stepfather or Kevin Brennan?
Hello. That's another podcast. I'm still not sure where that went wrong, but we'll keep it sports related. So I would love to, and I don't know if Antonio Brown would let people do this, do a brain scan on him. I guarantee you that he probably has at least 10 dark spots.
Let's get him on the Bad Guys podcast.
He probably would. Like, he strikes me as the type of guy who's like, fuck it, I'll do these 2 losers podcasts. But I mean, I hope, like I know a few guys who were in the early UFCs. It ain't pretty, man. Like, they can barely form a sentence. But I hope he gets the help he needs. I mean, even Brady, like you could tell, like for once the mirage was lifted, and he was like, "Yeah, I hope he gets help." So It's too bad. I mean, he could have been the greatest receiver of all time. I mean, he was so, and he still is good. But like, what team is going to take a chance on him now? Like, you'd have to be pretty desperate to take a chance on him.
Cleveland. Come on to Cleveland, buddy. Would love to see you there. That leads us to another. Go ahead.
Oh no, I mean, I think he'd be horrible for Cleveland. I know
Yeah,
you're
we don't
kinda-
need him. We got enough nightmares. We dealt with
I
Odell
think
Beckham. We couldn't deal with Odell Beckham, so we're going to deal with Antonio Brown.
Oh yeah, I mean, Beckham's a cakewalk next to Brown. I think Baker should stop doing so many fucking commercials. And,
I agree. Do like 3 less progressive commercials and work on your fucking throws.
Well, I will say a torn labrum. That's a pretty severe injury for a quarterback. So I'll give him props. He did the Roethlisberger thing, just toughing it out, and I think he'll be better. But that's a tough injury to ever really heal. I mean, Cleveland will be good again. They'll get a good draft pick this year.
Oh yeah, I'm not pressing panic button like a lot of people in Cleveland are. I'm not doing it. That leads us to another good game. 20 years ago, what a rivalry this was. San Francisco versus Dallas. You got 10-7 49ers going in to Dallas, 12-5. Dallas is getting -3. That's another jerk off gambler's pick. San Francisco's 49ers quarterback, Janine Garofalo, has played through some significant injuries. I mean, right now, from what I understand, he's dealing with a torn ligament, a chipped bone in his right thumb where he throws. So it's going to be challenging for them. But if you're going with the -3 aspect, I think it's going to be a close game. I think San Francisco covers, Dallas wins. That's my prediction. Earl, you go.
I mean, once again, I'm going with the home team, and I think I'm going to go with the Cowboys minus the points. So I picked them to win outright and cover the spread.
Ooh.
Well, I mean, if it's in San Francisco, I might, all right, once again, I really think in this year's playoffs, the home team is pretty much in every scenario, maybe outside of Cincinnati, because their fan base isn't rabid, has distinct advantage. I think Prescott's sick of hearing, hey, man, you make a lot of money. You haven't really done much. Elliott's, seems to be back to his usual form. And, the injury with Garoppolo is, it's significant. And it's probably worse than what we all know. So, when it's a bad injury in the media, it's probably twice as bad in reality. So, I mean, the 49ers could win. I mean, they put a string like the second half they did against the Chargers last week. That's pretty impressive. Down 17-0. So, it was against the Chargers, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Garoppolo's healthy completely. I might go, yeah, I'll take the Niners plus the points. I mean, I think this will be a very close game. Once again, a gambler's wet dream, because they're kind of. I think the purpose when you do a point spread this tight is you want people betting both sides. I just think the Cowboys at home. It's not like the 49ers have no path to victory, but I just think the Cowboys at home are going to take it.
There you go, Rack Earl. That leads us to our final game Monday night. You got the Arizona Cardinals coming in at 11-6 against Kate Quigley's 12-5. Is it Kate Quigley's Chargers? No, it's
no, she's a Charger team.
This is the Rams, is it? Is it?
Yeah, she might be a Ram fan now. I don't know.
She's a Ram fan. She's a Ram fan because when she got back out of the hospital and the two people were on the autopsy table, she was yelling, "Go Rams," and she's not going to let people bring her down. So she's a Rams fan.
It was actually 3 people.
3 people, if you want to. Yeah. My apologies to the other victim. So she was saying, "Go Rams." So so they're getting -4 in your backyard, Los Angeles, California. Where do you stand on this game, Earl?
I mean, Cardinals are kind of a Jekyll and Hyde team. They look good one game, and then they kind of look a little weird the next game. I mean, they're up and down, up and down. I mean, I think they get a boost. The rumors are J.J. Watt might come back for this game. How effective he'd be, who knows?
The Rams just signed Eric Whittle for the wild card game. He was retired.
That's not good.
He's a safety. Yeah, that's not a good sign.
When you're signing guys who are retired, it's like the Saints. There was the Saints a couple of weeks ago when they had like all four of their quarterbacks either hurt or in COVID protocol. Reached out to Drew Brees in Hawaii. It's like, hey, you want to just play this weekend? I feel like, what? I mean, I think DeAndre Hopkins is out for this game. That's huge. He has good chemistry with Murray. Connor at running back, it's a great story. Steeler fans know it well, but I don't think he's overwhelming people this season. I mean, this is a tough one. I like the Rams. I just think McVay reminds me of kind of a Mike Tomlin type coach. Players coach, rah, all that stuff. I just think Stafford wants to prove his worth to the Rams. They traded a lot to get him. Even though I don't think the Rams were disappointed to get rid of Goff, they still did trade a boatload to get this guy. So I like the Rams. Donald, he's just unstoppable, and he just the way he disrupts the whole offensive game plan. You have to almost triple team him, double, triple team him, and once you do that, then other guys, break free. And although Murray is very mobile, probably one of the most mobile quarterbacks, I just don't. I think the Rams defense will, Ramsey on the corner, like they just have so many weapons on defense that I don't see the.
Did you say Ramsey Moore?
Ramsey Moore. He was a legendary LA comic. What a shock that a guy who weighed 500 pounds would die of a heart attack.
Yeah, COVID would have got him eventually. So rest in peace, Ramsey Moore.
I mean, he was Ralphie May. He was Ralphie May big. Let me tell you that much.
Ramsey Moore.
Like Ralphie at least looked semi-healthy. Like he had his skin looked like yours and mine, like not vibrant, but it looked normal. Like Ramsey, anytime I would see Ramsey Moore, he looked like he had jaundice, like just a yellowish hue. And then I think my favorite Ramsey Moore memory, and I know where people are like, who the fuck are they talking about? But me and Chad, we like to do a deep dive. Is the Comedy Store had a boxing match boxing card, and the winners all got to open up for Russell Peters. So they were really fighting. It was a comedy boxing card. So it was Ramsey Moore against J Mac, who's himself about 450 pounds. Neither guy has been seen since. It was pretty funny. Russell Peters was a judge, and you had Hinchcliffe and Rick Ingram were the announcers, and
that'd been funny play-by-play.
This Don Barris was the ring announcer.
Perfect.
Joey, I mean, it was just, and Joey Medina was, I think he was the ref. He's a popular Hispanic comic in LA. And then
it's casted well.
It
was casted well.
Oh, it was perfect. And it was held in a boxing gym in Burbank that probably was meant to have 25 people in it max. There was at least 150 people in this facility. I mean, it was beyond hot. Everyone's sweating. And Chris Neff, very funny LA comic, he was taking bets. Like he's in the gambling world, so he had made this sports betting board in the middle of the gym, and the fight, I was in the corner of several fighters, and Ramsey, and I don't know how he didn't have a heart attack. It had to have been literally, I'm not kidding, 150 degrees in this room. I mean, everyone just sweating bullets. Jack Napier, the porn star, was there. I mean, it was just like the barn Star Wars. Every freak in LA comedy was there. And, the owner of the gym, one of the fights was Josh Martin, who you brought up roast battle earlier. He was one of the reasons. He was really the reason roast battle started, because he wanted to fight an open micer. And
did Josh Martin, did he stick around LA or did he go to Austin?
He's in LA.
Okay.
But literally there'd be no roast battle if Josh Martin didn't want to fight Kenny Lyon. So Josh Martin is fighting Boone Shakalaka, legendary LA open micer. He's like a homeless guy who steals from stores and comes up to the Comedy Store and sells his merchandise for like $1. I mean, he'll literally sell you a new iPad for $1.
Oh, that's not a bad deal.
No, it's great. Of course, you don't know if it's going to work or not, but
that's you got to, that's the chance you got to take.
So Josh was fighting Boone Shakalaka, and Boone kept telling people he had AIDS. And right before the fight, the owner of the gym was like, comes up to me and goes, "Hey man," because I was in Boone's corner. They're like, "Well, Earl, you're the most physically fit guy here. You help Boone out." And the owner comes up to me and goes, "Hey, he doesn't really have AIDS, does he?" I'm like, "Dude, I can't promise you he doesn't." And I got to tell you something. The Boone Josh Martin fight may have been the greatest boxing match I've ever seen in my life.
Wow.
High praise. The energy. The energy in the room was like Ron Lyle and George Foreman. Like, at one point, Boone threw a punch so hard he missed and he fell through the ropes, and like it was so hot in there. Like I'm telling you, it was literally 150 degrees. Boone's having heart palpitations. Like, it was a great moment in Comedy Store history. And of course, none of the winners got to open up for Russell Peters. It was all a scam.
Oh, that sucks. Come on, Russell.
It wasn't Russell's fault. It wasn't Russell's fault. They just, like, it was not very well organized after. I think they thought, let's just do this and we'll deal with the awards later.
We'll deal with the consequences later. Too funny.
But great. I only tell that incredibly long-winded story because you brought up Ramsey Moore's name, and he fought J Mac, and the whole time both of them were farting uncontrollably in the ring, because I really thought we were going to see death. Like, you have two guys fighting each other who are easily 2 to 250 pounds overweight. Not weigh 250 pounds, but probably are close to 450, both of them. And I'm like, this can't be a good idea. I started being embarrassed that I was a part of this.
Rest in peace, Ramsey Moore. Let's see if we can get a visual on the great Ramsey Moore here, just so if you guys are watching this on the YouTube, this is what we're talking about here. There he is.
And let me tell you something, that he was much bigger than that. Like, that is Ramsey at his skinniest. Like, when I knew Ramsey, and I know you can't see me pointing on the, I mean, that picture right there with him without a shirt off, at the time of the Comedy Store boxing match, he was at least 100 pounds heavier. Like, it was, that's him skinny. No, I'm not even like, it's like,
I've done gigs with Ramsey. I remember he'd take forever to get the fucking to the stage. I was like, come on, dude, let's go. Let's get to the stage.
We did and I always felt bad for Tripoli. We did a short film, Tripoli. It was Tripoli's idea. It was about.
It's called Fixing Ramsey.
No, it was. What was it? The premise was very similar to Malibu's Most Wanted. Like, these two rappers awake in a new century, and I played the sensei, and it was such a low budget gig. Steve Byrne was supposed to play the sensei, so the name was Sensei Byrne, and I was Sensei Byrne. They didn't even change the name to like Sensei Earl. And Ramsey was one of the rappers, and there's a scene where he falls on the ground because he can't keep up with Tripoli's breakdancing. And the sound on that, this was 15 years ago, and Brody was in it. It was an amazing cast. Like it was Jason Tebow,
I think I heard
Stevens.
about this. I think I remember someone talking about it.
It's called Breaking Her Down. I don't know if it's on YouTube, but it's pretty funny. Brett Ernst is in it. Tripoli. Brody plays a Martian from outer space. Like, Eddie Pepitone. Like it's really like it's something, and it just sucked because I think as soon as we released it, Malibu's Most Wanted came out. It was kind of the same premise, and it just I don't think much happened of it, but there was a lot of people from that film are no longer with us. Brody and Ramsey, and of course Owen Benjamin's living in the woods like Dexter. So
good times, good memories.
Just it kind of was. I wish comedy for me would go back to that time frame of just doing comedy with your friends.
That era, I'd say from 2005 to 2012 was the best time to do comedy.
Which ironically was probably my least. I'm just saying, for me, it was my least successful.
Well, same here, but I had more fun. It was just fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was writing on the Ian Baggins Show at that time. I wasn't getting paid, but it's like, oh, you get to be. I mean, Ian's a super funny comic, and back then, I think we thought, oh, this is gonna be like Ian's show was really Tosh 2.0 before Tosh. I mean, it was like, this is gonna get on TV. Like, he's such a good host, and the writers were all funny, super. Patrick Keane and Brian Irwin and Louis Anderson was involved, and it was like, wow, this show has to get on FX at the minimum. But just didn't happen. So
Earl, it didn't happen, dude. You got to move on, dude.
No, absolutely. So move on. Nothing's over.
By the way, were you a fan of Red Dawn, the movie? I just watched the making of Red Dawn.
I like the first one.
There's only one first one. Oh, I mean, I guess they remade it.
There's a remake.
Yeah, fucking going to the mountains, Wolverines. Are you kidding me?
Was a great cast, and I like the guy who wrote it. Is someone I want to interview before he dies, John Milius, who's one of the great screenwriters of all time.
Yeah.
Well, he used to want Big Wednesday as his movie.
And that was Charlie Sheen's first movie.
Yeah, I mean Patrick Swayze,
C. Thomas Howell,
Leah Thompson,
Jennifer Grey. Interesting backstory. I guess there was a love scene between Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze, and he said, "I don't want to do it." And there was a lot of friction between the two of them, and they end up having a Dirty Dancing together later on in their career.
Yeah, that is funny. Who knows? He probably, that was right after Uncommon Valor for Swayze, so he probably wanted. I mean, who knows why he didn't want to do it?
He said it didn't go along with the flow of the movie. He did a creative decision. Good on Swayze.
But that's a great, just an amazing cast. Like William Smith, who played the main Russian general, which is weird because he's not Russian. He was the guy in the second Clint Eastwood movie with the orangutan.
Every Which Way But Loose, or Every Which Way You Can?
Any Which Way You Can and Every Which Way But Loose. I'm brain farting on which one was first, but he was in the second one.
I think You Can second. Okay.
He's a great character actor, and Powers Booth is probably my favorite character actor. Along with
Harry
John
Dean
Glover.
Stanton was in that too. You remember? Avenge Me!
He played the dad in the general store, and that's such a talented cast. Like every one of those guys and girls worked for like 20, 30 years after that movie. Even the guy from Gremlins. Wasn't the guy from Gremlins in that, the tall, good-looking kid? Or
think so.
He's
I don't
one-
remember.
Not Zach Galifianakis, but he had like a name like that. Let me look up this guy's name. I like it because I'm such a John Milius fan, and it's painful to me that more people don't know who he is. You know, he came in and helped write Apocalypse Now, and I think he ghost wrote or fixed up a lot of movies under pseudonyms, and there's a great documentary on him. I think it's just called Milius. Whereas if you are a writer, I think anyone who's into the writing of films would love it, because he had a stroke, so I'm not sure if he's like this now, but he could barely talk at the time of the documentary. So it's like, here's one of the world's great writing minds, and he can't express his thoughts right now. So it's kind of a sad documentary, but he's I liked it just because I'm such a fan of his, and it's a pretty good movie. I mean, I think that it stands. I mean, I think kids today don't get how significant the Cold War was between U.S. and Russia and the Reagan, height of the Reagan years. But I think if you were alive and like a teenager and you see that movie now, it still stands up. But I think kids today wouldn't be, what's the big deal? Russia didn't really hate us, so it's definitely a generational movie, I think.
Well, there you have it. I'm going with the Rams too.
And what the fuck? Darren Dalton is the guy's name I was thinking of. It's not the guy from Gremlins, but he looks a lot like the guy. So never mind.
Well, first and foremost, Earl, where can people find you on social media if they don't know already?
I mean, I'm really at Earl Skakel, of course, on every platform. And then there's Inappropriate Earl, iTunes and SoundCloud. Thinking of going to Patreon in some fashion.
You should.
Well, I just and I probably should ask you off air some questions. I just want to make sure someone brought up a good idea. Keep the podcast for free, but then do stuff on Patreon, like videos and show clips of your stand up, or, do like yesterday I was walking on Fairfax and I saw a car crash. And if you go on my Instagram, I'm not trying to get views. I mean, I am, but like my latest thing on Instagram is I filmed for the next 30 minutes the interaction between the Russian girls and the huge Hispanic lady, and it was like a reality TV show. So I might, put up videos like that. I want to make sure people feel value. So
yeah, no, that's what I do with mine. I put up a episode for free, get it a week earlier. Then I try to throw up rewards like tickets to shows and things like that, do giveaways. There's all kinds of little things you can do, but it's the best way to support an artist right now. And I think for me, I know I'm going to cut back on the road less and less this year. So I'm going to just keep Patreon. I'm going to keep doubling down on content, doubling down on podcasts, and there will be more Bad Guys episodes. The thing is, we're coming out of a pandemic where, a lot of these guys were more accessible, but now people are kind of milling about doing their thing. So it's a little bit harder to get guys like we used to, but I'm still going to be grinding and trying to get some people, and we'll keep the Bad Guys series going. And if Earl starts the Patreon, please support the man already. He's brought a lot of love, a lot of joy to all our podcasts. So thank you so much, Earl, for your time.
Oh, thank you for including me always. And yeah, the Bad Guys is not over. It's just like you said, it's hard to, even on Zoom now, people are like, I don't want to do Zoom. And like, well, you want to do it in person? And you and I can't do it in person because we're on opposite ends of the coast. It's just a matter of getting someone like Vernon Wells going, fuck it, I'll do these guys' podcast, or
Brian Thompson.
Brian Thompson, like you got to find these guys who are like I know I don't want to spoil who we're trying to get, but I'll say it just because, like I asked Thomas Ian Griffith to be on my podcast 3 years ago because that's what I wanted. Let me get the guy from Karate Kid 3, but now he's almost probably too big, right now anyway.
Yeah.
get. And so he probably gets our request. I've sent him a few on Instagram. He probably, it's not that he doesn't want to do it. He's like, I don't know. I've already done 6 interviews today. I don't want to talk to these guys for a half hour. So it's you got to find these guys who are eager enough to do it, but like,
yeah, if I'm blowing off podcasts, me personally, like people send me messages, I know Thomas Ian Griffith's blowing it off, and somebody else is like, I've been in the house for a year. I'm gonna go outside instead of sitting in front of my computer.
yeah, I mean, I get asked to do, I mean, I'll pretty much do anyone's podcast, but now I'm at the point now where, I get asked to, because people see our podcast. Oh, they have really good chemistry. I want to do that with Earl on like a wrestling podcast or whatever. It's like, well, I want to get paid for the next one. Like, I'm 53, man. Like, I got to start, which is why I started thinking about Patreon. Like, I've done 334 episodes of Inappropriate Earl for free. Like, I don't need the money, but like at some point you got to be like, hey, you got to pay me for something. Like, Earl, like, I'm not doing this for free.
You've had some good guests on. You definitely should get some sort of compensation. At least, if anything, put the episode a week early on Patreon and release it for free a week later. There's all kinds of little things you can do. We can talk. But listen, we're going to wrap it up. We're up against it. I got shit to do. But thank you so much for the great Earl Skakel. I'm Chad Zumock. Have a good one. That's a wrap. Rack me.